Five on the Floor, brought to you by the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka Three Piece Combo. Today I'm joined by Mr. Mateo Mayorga and Mr. Gadiel Cartagena. Now, as always, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys like the video and make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are Heat fans, Dolphins fans, Marlins fans, any South Florida sports or MMA. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Five Reasons Sports channel. And make sure if you guys as well are young with a family, make sure you go to markbrownpa.com. That's M-A-R-C, brownpa.com. If you're young with a family, you want to make sure your assets go to the right people. He'll take care of you. He'll give you a free consultation as well. So make sure you hit him up, 954-866-8513, based out of the North Lauderdale area. And he services the entire South Florida. So make sure you guys, like I said, go to marcbrownpa.com or give him a call, 954-866-8513. Now, you guys know every single day we give you our prize picks. So make sure you guys go to prizepicks.com, use that promo code 5, spell it out like it says on the screen, FIVE. We'll double your initial deposit up to $100. So that's literally 20 free players, 23 free plays on the best daily fantasy app. Make sure you guys go to prizepicks.com. Like I said, use that promo code 5, and that way we'll double your deposit up to $100. Guys, we're coming off a tail end. A pretty terrible loss, against the Hornets, where we had the lead, gave it up, and, ended up taking the loss against a team that really has taken a big step down from last year. Mateo, I'll start with you on this one. What was the biggest cause of that collapse against Charlotte?
Well, Jonathan, that was one of the Heat's worst efforts guarding the point all season. Guys couldn't stop the ball or fight hard enough over screens, and as a result, opposing ball handlers kept getting into the lane for a finish. The Hornets converted 58 points in the interior, and Miami doesn't allow more than 43 or 44 for the year. That really indicates an atrocious night at guarding. Nobody could stop Gordon Hayward either. He made all 7 of his field goal attempts. 2 of them came in the second half, but he was good on catch and shoot opportunities from the corners and working off ball, wrapping around screens, trying to get into the lane after the catch. He was perfect, and no one really stopped him. Miami was spanked on the boards by 11 rebounds, which indicates that Charlotte had more opportunities on the offensive end than they should have. But this is all very unfortunate because in that game, Miami shot 48% from the field. That indicates you're pretty much cruising on the offensive end. I know they weren't very sharp from three-point range, only making 32% of those, but 48% is very high for the game, and this really just indicates a refusal to defend.
No, you're absolutely right. You mentioned something about rebounds, getting out-rebounded by Charlotte. We're getting Yurt back potentially after the All-Star break, Gad. And obviously, he's coming off of that ankle injury, so we can't expect him to come in giving us 100% of what he was giving us last season. Obviously, the games that Bam were out, Yurt was giving us great numbers, a good amount of rebounds, doing a lot of good things. Obviously, there's still some things he needs to polish on. But I want to ask, do you think, or 2 questions, actually, what do you think Yurt brings coming back to this team after this injury? And does he fill that void of maybe that backup 5/4 that they need to kind of implement?
So to answer your first question, I think what Yurt brings is finally like someone who can you can run offense through a little bit off the bench, which they haven't really had that much. I think Yurt, one of his most underrated abilities outside of obviously like the ability to score off of post-ups and just use his sheer size, I think he's a really good passer. Like you can run some post splits with him. You can use him at the elbow. If he has a mid-range going, he's a little bit of a threat from there. And he can leverage that into being able to make passes to some cutters. I really like what he can do passing-wise. So if you're playing him, let's say with a bench lineup of like Caleb Martin and Victor Oladipo and maybe Gabe Vincent, then you have some players that can cut and you have players that can handle. And I think that benefits Yurt. So I think offensively, he can bring a lot in terms of stuff that they just haven't had. I think you can rely on Yurt for like 8 or so points a game if he's getting those consistent like 18 minutes. I think he's going to for sure get you rebounding. He's a really good rebounder, and he's for sure going to give you something offensively. Defensively, it's a little bit more questionable, but when you look at what is the replacement for him, which is Orlando Robinson or Dwayne Dedmon, I think you could argue that Orlando Robinson's a little bit better of a defender, but not by much. And I think Yurt's physical presence in terms of just being huge, strong, and being able to kind of deter shots at the rim a little bit more. I think he can be an upgrade almost on both ends, but simultaneously, I'm not sure if that's enough for what this team should be looking for from the backup 5 spot. So while I think Yurt, at the very least, is going to be a very good third big, I think he shouldn't stop you from looking to get that second big that maybe you actually feel comfortable playing in a playoff series. But I am excited for Yurt to be back. I think he will help this team.
Yeah, very well said. Like you said, I think like he'll bring something to this team that was missing as far as just having a maybe more reliable backup five. I think Dwayne Dedmon's fall off has been off a cliff. Sorry. So Yurt is definitely going to have to fill some of that hole. But let's get to today's game, Mateo. Cleveland, not necessarily the greatest offensive team, even with the talent of Donovan Mitchell, but defensively, they are very, very good. Number one in scoring defense and number one in assists against. So they limit assists and passing opportunities as well. What has allowed Cleveland to be so potent defensively?
Real quick, since we're taking shots at Cleveland's offense, they are the slowest team in the league in terms of pace. But really, why their defense is so potent is really the work of two guys, the big men of the future, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. These guys are remarkable because they can stop the ball outside and bother close range attempts inside the interior. They play a lot in the 2-3 zone in the half court. And when they're in the back line, these two guys, when they extend their arms, they're like albatrosses because they cover so much ground. It's also pretty remarkable how they each average over a block a game when they spend so much time switching out to the perimeter. But the main thing you got to understand is that when they're on the court, the opposing team prefers to attack from the outside, and they're not very good at getting to the mid-range either because they take away shots at the elbow. But they also have other good defenders. I really like what I've been seeing from Isaac Okoro over the last couple of months. He's someone who's skilled on the offensive end as a pro, and because of his size, he looks like a college-level linebacker. He has some success against certain matchups stopping the ball. He does get beat a lot, but when he does, he doesn't give up on the play when he's on someone's back hip. I really like him. He's someone who's shown a lot of promise on that end of the floor. But really, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley are some monsters on that end of the floor, and they are the main reason why Cleveland has the second best paint defense in the league.
Now let's get into a little bit of their offense, right? Darius Garland over the last couple of weeks has been the guy leading them in offense, scoring the ball. I think the last 2 weeks around 25 points a game compared to Donovan Mitchell's 17. So he's been actually carrying them just a little bit offensively. And obviously the big guys for that team, they're really good offensively as well. Gad, which one of those guys, or maybe one of those somebody else off the bench, who are you most worried about from this Cleveland team?
I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not super worried about any of these players. They have some solid players off the bench. Like, I think Lamar Stevens is pretty underrated. Dean Wade is pretty solid. Karis LeVert obviously can score. I don't know if he's starting or coming off the bench recently. But I really think it's just the stars that worry me. I will gladly let any one of those players that I just named, if they have a good game, oh well. But you need to try to limit these players and make them a little bit uncomfortable. But I think what would really hurt the Heat is being able to stop drives today and really allowing the Cavs to get to that kind of like 2-on-1 game where Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, they're not going to be the best creating for themselves. But if they're playing off of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, they both have potential to put up 20. And I think if Jared Allen and Evan Mobley put up a combined 40 points, you're not beating this Cavs team because they aren't really relied on to do that much offensively. So really for me, I think the key would be to keep the bigs away from the rim, kind of turn them into a little bit of a jump shooting team. I think if that happens, you live with the result of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell taking 30 plus jumpers in a game. But if you let them get into the paint, I don't think we're beating them.
That is fair. So let's get to PrizePicks and our PrizePicks rapid fire. Obviously, make sure you guys use that promo code 5. Mateo, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball, right? So we have first half PrizePicks, right? Bam Adebayo is at 10.5. Jimmy Butler's at 10.5 for points in the first half. Which of the two is more likely to go over that?
Oh, that is both hard because Jimmy struggles against length. And these are Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are both guys who can stay in front of him. Bam. I'm probably going to go with Bam Adebayo because I expect him to be very active off ball and to be cleaning up the glass on the offensive end. I expect both of them to get going more in the second half of this game. Cleveland is really very good at shutting off the interior, and both of these guys from Miami are guys who get it done inside the lane. So I'm not feeling too good about either one of them really getting 10 in the first half. But
yeah,
I would say
you want to take the under on both, you're more than welcome to.
You know what? I'm gonna take the under on both, but if there was someone who had a better chance, it's probably Bam.
Fair point. Fair point. Gad, let's get to almost a lock. Kyle Lowry on the points here. He's at 9.5. How you feeling about those points for Kyle Lowry?
Kyle Lowry came out and said, I think it was today, or I don't know exactly when the quote was from, but that he could average 25 if he wanted to, but he prefers to get his teammates involved. He's never done that in his career, but I think he comes out tonight with some vengeance. I think he comes out tonight, and what is the line? 9.5? I think it gives you like a good 10. It's a big game. Kyle Lowry is a big game today.
Big game, Kyle Lowry with 10 points.
That's what I'm saying. Hammer the over. Hammer the over on Kyle Lowry today. Thank you.
Hey,
later.
I mean,
and if you don't hammer the
games,
over, if you hammer the under, it's not my fault. This is not betting advice.
Speaking of big games, I mean, he had 11 points on 3 for 11 shooting last time out. So he can possibly string a couple of these, ginormous games together. I'm going to go ahead and I would take the under on that personally. But Gad's saying take the over. He said he's coming out with a vengeance. Looking at the assist for Bam Adebayo, they have it at 2.5. I think that's a little low. I think I'm going to take the over for assists on Bam for 2.5 assists. I'm probably feeling like even if the defense of Cleveland is able to lock off the paint, they still run a lot of passes or saw a lot of actions through Bam Adebayo and still believe he can still get those opportunities there. So I think he'll go over 2.5. That number is really low for an assist total for Bam Adebayo. Let's get to predictions. Gad, I'll let you kick it off for predictions, man. How do you feel about this game? Who gets the win?
This game is low-key like a huge game for the Heat, right? Like they're 2.5 games behind Cleveland. So if they lose, they fall 3.5 games back with just maybe around 30 or so games left. I think exactly 30 games left. So that would be a little bit, obviously not impossible to come back from, but a little bit difficult. And they're going into Cleveland. They're playing solid. They're not playing their best basketball right now, but the Heat are obviously coming off of a pretty rough loss. I think stylistically speaking, the Heat really are going to be bothered by the personnel that the Cavs have because they have two bigs who are really, really good at shutting off that interior, like Mateo was saying earlier, and they have two guards who are really, really capable of breaking down defenses off the dribble, which has been the Heat's Achilles heel, in my opinion. So I'm going to have to go with the Cavs here. I think the Cavs are flat out a better regular season basketball team. I think they have better scoring. So the Heat are going to need, in my opinion, like an anomalous shooting night where they're going to shoot above 40% on some pretty decent volume in order to win this game, because I don't think you're going to get a boom performance from Jimmy and Bam. Maybe you get it from one of them, but I think in total they'll probably combine for around like 40 or so points, and you're going to need a really good game from the supporting cast, in which I do not have that much faith in right now, but I would love to be wrong because this is a really, really big game for the Heat. A win today keeps you alive for that like 4/5 spot. Obviously, it wouldn't kill you if you lost it, but it really puts you in that mix, I think, to be in that fifth seed conversation, which would be pretty big.
Mateo?
I'm going to go with a Cleveland W too. Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are like offensive linemen, the way they get Garland and Mitchell at the key or on the wing so they can just slither into the lane for easy buckets. They are a much better team than the Miami Heat. I'm sad to say they are 10 games over 500. The Miami Heat are 5 games over 500. The Cavaliers are one of the best teams at securing home court. I think they've only lost 5 times in that building, but really, I don't think Miami is going to have enough on the offensive end.
Yeah, I hate to say that I agree with both you guys. Actually, I'd love to say that because you both are smart. But I do agree with both you guys, honestly. Like you said, I just think with the inconsistencies that this team has had from 3, regardless of how, not potent the Cleveland offense is, Miami's offense isn't as good either. And then our defense compared to theirs, rather has been good, is not as good as their defense. So I think when it comes down to the supporting cast and the guys outside of Bam and Jimmy giving you a good amount of effort, it's going to be tough for those guys to get their own against a very good defensive team in Cleveland. But as always, guys, make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you guys subscribe. Go to barkbrownpa.com or give them a call, 954-866-8513, or go to prizepicks.com and use the promo code 5 and make sure you double your deposit up to $100. Thanks, you guys, and Alejandro will take it away with some player interviews.
The Cavs are outstanding in this building. Is there anything particular that seems to stand out, that the comfort and confidence they develop at home?
Well, they take pride in it. They're a very good team. So if you're a good team, you're winning at home and winning a good portion of your games on the road. And they have the number one defense in the league. So you have to be able to control the game on both sides of the floor. Make sure that you're getting the shots that you want, not the ones that they want to dictate. And then manage, those emotions that inevitably will happen.
You cut a deal like they did to get Donovan here. You don't know until you know, but it seems like it's a really good fit. I know he's making his way back from injury, but what is it about the pieces that make that connection work so well for him and them?
Well, they are a team that plays the right way. They compete defensively. So back-to-back years, they have the number one defense, and his biggest impact has been on the offensive floor. When he plays, they have a great offense as well. He's explosive. He can go for big numbers. So that brings extra defenders. And they've done a nice job playing off of a lot of those triggers with he and Garland. Yeah, but it was not a full pace thing, so we'll have to make that decision tonight.
Having done the All-Star choices, yours last week, how difficult was it for you to narrow to the 7? And what are your thoughts on Jimmy and Bam's chances?
Yeah, I think they'll both make it. The coaches vote on that, and I think they recognize both those guys, how much they impact winning. We talked at length about Jimmy, but Bam is deserving. You can't tell me that he's not one of the top, whatever number of players in this game, and definitely deserving of being an All-Star.
Because they're both listed as front court players, did you find even when you did your wild cards and got to the last two that it was more front court heavy?
It is a little bit different now with the fan voting, because that can distort positions, a little bit. I think it would almost be easier voting Bam for All NBA. I think you definitely can make a case that he's a top 3 center. There's clarity on that. It's okay, you're definitely playing All NBA level. It just gets a little bit trickier with this the voting system, for All Stars.
The scenery's changed so much for you guys over the years. You guys are always hanging around competence and not contention. How do you guys maintain that sustained success?
Who my boss is? That says enough. He's going to drive this ship to make sure that we're contending, or at least in a position to contend every year. In terms of that, no. He sets the foundation, and we're the soldiers that carry out the plan.
He can be obviously ridiculous from an offensive standpoint. They let him do pretty much whatever needs to be done for them here. I know he's coming back from injury, but when you're trying to keep a player like that in, just at least in their average space, what's the most important? Are you trying to take things away, or are you just making it as challenging as possible?
Probably a little bit of both, a mix of both. I mean, only but so much you could take away when a guy like that is so aggressive, but he's so skilled at the same time, and especially whenever he does a great job of getting his teammates involved. It's tough to take away a ton of stuff. So you just do what you can, try to maintain, and just stick to the game plan. It's more of a team effort more than an individual. The individual getting stops. Yeah.
Everybody wants that line. Is there anything particular about them and the way they go about it that allows them to have a confidence in it?
I just think everybody gets involved at home. Everybody shoots the ball pretty well at home. They got a nice home court advantage, and you could tell they feed off that crowd. So they're just a real energetic group at home, and so we just got to make sure we maintain the environment and the energy, just match whatever they come out with.
With one point or another, you might have to deal with him. because he's just such an offensive juggernaut, are you trying defensively as a team to take anything away, or you're trying to absorb it and make sure it's not his next 70-point night? What's the best approach?
I think you're always trying to take, everything away if you can. And but obviously with great offensive players, they're going to get to their spots and make shots as well as anybody else in this league. So you try to make it difficult, make them uncomfortable as you can, and go from there.
Spo said one of the reasons why they're so good here, and they have such a wonderful home record, is their defense. That because they're the top defense, that they can pretty much correct anything. Is that your view as you guys were preparing?
They have a great defensive team. They have for a couple of years now. They got a lot of length, and especially at home, they shoot the ball a lot better, I think, overall as a team, and most teams do. So if you can make it difficult for guys on the road with your defense and your length, and you're making shots, you're a team to beat.